So, vitamin therapy, that's our training kind of segment for tonight. And I know everyone's had a shitty couple of years, I certainly haven't. I'm massively passionate about this because I went through a period in my life that was massively stressful. I lost a lot of my hair, and I actually had like major issues with one of my legs, like I couldn't move my foot properly, and it was due to a very stressful situation in my life. And while that was going on, I embarked on some beautiful vitamin therapy, and it really did help in my recovery. So I suppose, you know, when you're like a born-again Christian about something like this treatment, I just want to share it with everyone, and share it with our industry as well. Like, you know, Mary-Lou, who's our guest speaker tonight,
thanks, Matt.
Is one of our suppliers, and we're happy to share Mary-Lou with the world.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm going to do. So Mary-Lou and I have known each other for years.
Hello, we have.
Yes, we have.
Can you hear me? Thanks for having me.
So Mary-Lou was actually my first landlord when about 10 years ago.
Yeah. I still get your mail.
Yeah, do you? God, I don't know. Put the redirect on that. It's a bit stressful, isn't it?
It's all those speeding tickets. No, I'm joking.
Oh my God, it probably is, and they're not mine. They're my children's.
Exactly.
Just saying, and they're in the room tonight. Jesus.
I've got those children too.
Yeah. I'll just go and grab the questions. So we've got some questions to ask Mary-Lou tonight. And look, during the course of our conversation, if you've got like a burning question, please feel free just to yell out and ask. I should really do a bit more of an intro on you, shouldn't I? Or do you want to do it?
Yeah, well, look, thanks for the opportunity. As Fran said, we've had a really wonderful professional relationship in the retail world, but now also for you, you are the experts in skin in this room, from Edwina herself overseas tonight to many of the beautiful nurses and clinicians you have, and even your staff. So I'm here just to share you my love and passion about IV nutrients. And if you can walk away this evening with one message, and if there's one compound out there that you need to know is so important in your life, and we're going to talk about it, and how you can boost it. And it might not be IV for you, but there's many ways. So my journey is I am first and foremost a pharmacist who then jumped ship and found compounding. So that's how even after that, we started making basic skin creams and local anaesthetics. Then I went on to do a postgraduate course in anti-aging medicine, and then certainly morphed more into chronic health diseases. So for the clientele I see and like to support every day, they don't have optimal health. And so you might say, well, how does that relate to me? And every day you're seeing skin. Skin is a reflection of health, isn't it? So if there's a few caveats you can take away today, how we can optimise skin and the health of your clients, it's just going to be a bonus, okay? There's no downside. So how do I get into it? Anti-aging medicine's really embraced with IV nutrients. I think why? Because we have an epidemic of people with poor gut function. So it's not so much about what's not in your diet, it's about what you need and what you can't absorb. So we need to understand that. I do, now it sounds a bit gross, stool testing, Fran, on a lot of clients, and you might go yucky poo. But I've got to tell you, we never see a good poo. It's like they've got parasites or they've got bacterial overgrowth. You know, we live in a sterile country, we have too many antibiotics, we have stress. You know, we then have candida for women and you'll ignore it. This is why, you know, you can't just go and keep taking oral vitamins. You've actually at one point got to go, okay, how do I get my levels up quickly for results? So anyway, that's why I got to where I am. That's my passion about IV nutrients, because I see a plethora of people every day who've got nutritional deficiencies, most probably from a gut dysbiosis of some type. So
yeah, so when did you discover the vitamin injections? Like when was that a thing?
Yeah, so I've been an advocate of vitamin injections probably for about 10 years. And look, they are still in infancy in Australia, I'll be honest. And look, you know, I think you've got to do what Fran's passionate about and what she's about to bring into her program is very safe. I mean, it's intramuscular, it's not IV, and they're very easy to administer. So I've been with them for 10 years and working closely with my health body, which is called A5M, which is Australasian Society of Anti-Aging Medicine, and we are actually doing with Cosmeticon, we're presenting this year again on IV because the request is they want more and more information. So I suppose we want to teach you how to do it safely and effectively and put the power of suggestion with your clients.
Yeah, so just for the audience who don't know, what's the difference between an IM and an IV?
Yeah, so IM is intramuscular, and I know your nurses know that. IV is when we cannulate and you find a vein. So obviously cannulation brings a whole new risk with sterile and introducing infection, and we're not going to do that. Intramuscular does, but the technique you'll be taught, obviously preparing the skin, which you're very familiar with because you deal with it all day long, and then you administer it. So the other thing is you don't, the side effect profile, we'll go through those. I know you had lots of great questions. It's well tolerated, and it's just then you doing a few quick obs and checks post it. So yeah, the big difference is low risk and easy application.
Yeah, so the other big difference for me, say as a customer, not as an RN, is just the time.
Yeah.
So
most cannulation takes 15 to 20 minutes to start, and then when you infuse it, you're not going to do an infusion of less than 15 minutes. So it is 30 minutes of your life, and I understand for many of you, you probably just spend an hour and a half on a facial treatment or some waxing, or you probably tell me what you're mainly doing. But therefore, time is the essence, and you can do it at the end of a procedure quickly. So how long does it take an intramuscular injection? 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so quick. It's just quick. Like a flu jab.
Yeah.
We love them.
Exactly.
We love them so much.
Let's not talk about those flu jabs.
No. Not right now. So we see the shelves lined. We go to the chemist, the supermarket. There's tons of vitamins on there. There's aisles and aisles of them.
Yeah.
What is the difference between, me lining up and taking all those vitamins to having an IM?
Yeah, so definitely some of the compounds we're talking about are in an activated state. So if I'm going to make a nutraceutical for you, I want it fresh and I want it in the most active form. And unfortunately, when I make a capsule or a vitamin sitting on the shelf, it's generally not in an activated form because it would decompose or rapidly oxidise quickly, and therefore fresh is not best, or you're not getting the best quality for you, and then you run the risk of obviously relying on one person to absorb it and then activate it with good liver function. Now, I don't know about you, but many of us have many things in our life which deteriorate liver function. The obese part, too many bad calories, too much alcohol, not enough sleep. And these all things that affect our liver function. And you guys, the window of your liver is your skin. So, whether you're seeing rosacea or whether you're seeing some pore block pores, you pretty much can say to someone they've got a pore. And the biggest strategy to boost when we go into what we're doing is I'm a big believer in fasting because it's such a good tool for resurrecting liver function.
Yeah, totally.
So does that explain that? It would just be the activity.
It did, and I think we'll explain more as we go through the individuals. So we're an ageing society, right? Everyone's getting older. I'm getting older.
You look gorgeous. She's not aging.
Not bad for a 48-year-old grandmother. Thank you.
That's Jack.
Yeah, Jack is here. But I think as we're aging, it's about our skin and the way that we look, but it's also about the way we feel, right? Because, for me personally, to be able to get up every day, go to the gym and have the energy to do that, I think that's the biggest game changer for me with IMs.
Yeah, totally. I mean, maybe we take a bit of a leap in faith, and if you ask me, and you alluded to energy, if there's one molecule in this planet that you need to make energy, and that's the NAD, and that's what I know we're going to bring into. So I'm going to put just a quick question to the room. Does anyone want more energy?
Yes.
Yeah, well then, therefore you've got to go to look at NAD. And the history of that compound, it's only been relatively available, intramuscular the last 3 years, but IV in the last 20. So, so I want energy, you want energy. So, therefore, I think, that's why it works.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal, right? So I'm always kind of meeting people, chatting to them, and they think I'm like a born-again Christian on NAD. I've even learned how to pronounce it and everything. So do you want me to go now?
Yeah, please do.
So nitinamide adenine dinucleotide.
Well done. Well,
It's pretty good. And I talk to everybody about it, and I'm like, man, you need to have this. And the only way I can explain it to people is to say, you will feel like the best version of you.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like, imagine your best day, like when you get up, you go to work, you feel like you're smashing it, you go to the gym, you do a great workout, and you're not a superhuman being, but you just feel great.
You do feel good.
So how long has NAD been around for?
Yeah, so look, basically in the 1960s, there was a compound. So just say the most important word Fran said with the N is niacinamide or nicotinic acid. Okay, so you can pronounce it several ways. So the niacinamide is the B3 part. So it's actually a coenzyme that you make in your body from a B3 analogue. So you might get B3 from food, nutrition, tryptophan, seeds, nuts, turkey meat, chicken meat, whatnot. But the most important way NAD is you make yourself. So the first argument you might say, well, I could change my diet. Well, you can't change your diet too much to make more NAD. Okay, so therefore nutrition's a big part, and sorry, I'm deviating. So the N is the B3 part, that's the niacinamide. Okay, and where do we go from now? I think we just popped on to...
I don't know.
Okay, I'll deviate it. I'm going to go back to the end part because you could then turn around and say, why wouldn't I have a B3 supplement? Okay, but it's this coenzyme that your body makes, and we're actually really fortunate now that we can get this coenzyme. It is highly unstable. That's why IV and intramuscular are best, and there's no NAD in a capsule sitting on any pharmacy because everyone knows, one, it doesn't absorb well, and two, it doesn't have a very long shelf life in a capsule form.
Yeah, I've actually tried taking the capsules.
How'd you?
The recommendation was 8 a day under the tongue, like sublingual. I really didn't notice the difference. Not like having a shot.
Yeah. So we have NAD boosters. So should we go more? So you said 1960s. That's what I said. So it was a drive in the 1960s. Apologies for deviating. And it was research for people who had chronic dependencies. Because the thing that we know, if your body cell is aging quickly, people will often go for something of addiction. So it might be alcohol, it might be drugs, it might be too much sugar, whatever it is, your body will start craving it. And what we now know is that to break that cycle of addiction, NAD is the most powerful thing we can give someone. So in the 1960s, a lot of detox clinics through Europe and the States have introduced this IV therapy. When they first introduced it, the protocols were 8 hours a day over 10 days, and magically at 10 days, people, huzzah, you're off your heroin, you're off your alcohol, because they feel so good when they're doing it. That's really the magic. It gave them energy. So what we've done, we've taken this compound that's been used in that area and just morphed it into, well, why can't I have it? I'm not addicted to alcohol. I'm not addicted to bad drugs, but I want to feel my best. So we've actually leveraged on a compound that we've known for many, many years into a really good health and energy space.
Yeah, so can people be allergic to it?
Yeah, good question. So probably the big part is NAD is a coenzyme that your body makes. So you would know if you're allergic to it because you'd know it from birth, okay? Who's allergic to insulin? No, it's a hormone you make to regulate sugars. You're not allergic to it, okay? Your body makes it. If you were allergic to it, we'd know at a very early age, and it'd be a genetic, a polymorphic issue that you'd probably go back from genetic thing. So no, you don't get allergy to it. Can you get too much of it? Yeah, you can. Too much of good things can happen. But the things you're doing an intramuscular injection, and that's where you downsize the risk, okay? In an IV setting, I would be concerned if someone was quite unwell giving a big dose.
Yeah, so people often say, oh, maybe I should go for a blood test to see if I'm low.
Yeah, good question. So we're really fortunate we're working with there's two gurus in the world in anti-aging. There's David Sinclair and Ross Grant. David Sinclair is an Australian scientist out of Sydney who now works at Harvard Health, and he's doing the leading research into all the current NAD boosters. So this is a word, this is not Fran and I talking, this is going to be in your life till you die, trust me. And you're going to be Googling now when you walk away, how can I get more NAD, what can I do? So we're really fortunate Ross Grant is about to commercialise. Now he was supposed to launch it pre-COVID, now COVID stopped a few things. Commercialise the first blood test for NAD in levels. But honestly, I'm going to tell you why, because if I rattle off the 5 biggest killers of your own NAD, we'll start with them before you do a blood test. Because, it's a bit like, remove the things that destroy it. Okay, the first one is anything in excessive. So we said excessive alcohol, excessive drugs, excessive sugar, excessive sunshine, too much sunlight because of your NAD, excessive music, okay, being obese, not getting enough sleep. So these are all things, mental health suppresses it. So there's so many things in every day. So if you think out of that list, that, I can pick 2 or 3, then don't test your level, it's going to be low. So the blood test that's coming about is more coming about from people with chronic illness with mitochondrial dysfunction, because they're the ones that's super low. But each and every one of us, unless you sleep your good 8 hours of quality sleep every night, you do not go in the sunshine, which is pretty hard in Queensland, and I love it, and you do not drink alcohol, and you do not have a carbohydrate-enriched diet, well then, yeah. So, yes, there is a blood test. Would it be commercially viable? Look, I think at this stage, you only can get under a clinical setting, and it's probably going to be about $500.
Yeah, wow. So how does it work?
Yeah. So, okay, in every cell we have a mitochondria. And I'm actually saying not every cell, the main cells of our body. The main cells in the body, I love to work with the brain, in the heart, and your gut, because that's mainly where I see people. Now, remember, the gut's a reflection of your skin. So, skin as well. So, we're going to put it out there. The biggest thing, the common denominator with these cell types in your body is they have a mitochondria. So, if those of you are not familiar with basic biology, mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. You need to ignite that battery. That's your mitochondria. So, in every cell, the energy coming out of the mitochondria is called ATP. Okay? What makes ATP is the NAD. So, I'm not going to go into a whole biochemistry lessons, but if you don't have enough NAD, you'll never make enough energy. So, of course, everyone who starts a course of NAD therapy gets a boost of energy. What I find, I use it, is for my brain. Okay, so I would normally love to have an NAD injection. I said to Fran before I came tonight, but I ran out of time, because I like the way it makes me focused. I get clarity, and my recall is far better. So therefore, that's why I use the compound. Do I use NAD boosters most days when I go to work? Yeah, I do. So yes.
Yeah, so let's be honest, if somebody was to have their first NAD shot, how would they feel?
Yeah, so this is what it is. So we just said mostly mitochondria in your brain, your heart, and your gut. So that's for, we like to hear words when people feel uncomfortable after an NAD booster or an injection. The reason is because we know success has happened. It's got to where it needed to get, it shook the little mitochondria, the cell came alive, and energy then came of it. So therefore, the first side effect often they get is quite a nauseated, queasy tummy, okay? Sometimes they vomit, and Edwina might want to right? We have had 1 or 2 clients over the years on an IV, but no, generally in intramuscular you wouldn't get that but vomit, but you might feel nauseated. You just sit them upright and they breathe through it. Okay, the second symptom might be with the brain, they feel a bit headachy or a bit woozy. And the third one is they might go a bit cold and feel like their just body has a cool temperature, okay? But for me, when we in our clinic do it regularly, we love hearing when they say, oh, I feel a bit lightheaded, or oh, I feel a bit nauseous, because we know we've actually had a dose response on a client, so that's a good thing.
So when I had my first IV with Edwina, I vomited like several times. And that was because my NAD levels were so low, right? That was the first time.
Well, your mitochondria must have had much for a while. Yeah. So when we inject it too, you have NAD receptors on these cells. So obviously we're bypassing your body making it. We're bypassing your diet. We're bypassing the B3 conversion. So by bypassing it and loading your body up, intramuscular as it is, and we're flooding the receptors, it is governed by dose gradient effect, meaning it has to attach to the receptor and then go into the cells. So you might say, well, what's the advantage? So someone chronically unwell, I would always suggest an IV over IM, because I can flood more receptors so I can get a better outcome. But for your benefit, you want them having more frequently, because NAD doesn't last. I think the best study I've seen, you get more 10 days out of it. Okay, so if someone walks into your clinic and you go, okay, I want a better complexion, I want smooth skin tone, I don't want red rashes, and someone on medication like Roaccutane, therefore you'd probably put them on a weekly injection course for 5 or 6 weeks, because you know at 6 weeks, of course they get energy, but you're going to see an absolute improvement in their skin, because you're doing everything else you do well anyway.
Yeah, so obviously I've had quite a few NAD shots now. Why is it when I have one now I don't feel sick? I just feel great and I go straight back to work.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because, Fran, you've up-regulated your transporters. I mean, you know, we live in this world of deficiencies and overindulgences. What do you think our little NAD receptors are doing? Down-regulate, down-regulate, down-regulate. So the more you give it, you can up-regulate and up-regulate. So now you're in a perfect situation. You're like me. I can whiz through pretty quickly on an infusion and don't feel unwell at all. When I have a NAD booster, though, I do like to dose to get a response, because I just challenge my body. Yeah. So that's the answer.
I don't challenge mine. Just saying. I like it now. So what are the contraindications? Are there any contraindications of NAD?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I think we're all about risk management now. So obviously the first one I'll start with, if I'm exploding energy into every cell that has a mitochondria. Now just by a second, the biggest cell group that doesn't have mitochondria is your red blood cells, okay? And you might say, well, how do they get the benefit of NAD? And they do, because it's that recycling of NAD and NADH. And I just want to go there. So if we're going to cells that are exploding mitochondria and bringing energy back to them, I want to say that the worst cell that I don't want to explode energy would be a cancerous cell, okay? So it doesn't discriminate. So you might say someone who's currently having chemo has an existing cancer condition. I think, in all honesty, I would not be suggesting to have a course of any NAD. I would use more dietary supplementation and fasting protocols. Is it going to become a contraindication in the future? I don't think so. I've just got to go, the moment with cancer and NAD, it's on in infancy, it's in animals, and it didn't differentiate, okay? So therefore, no, we don't explode energy in that type. Does that someone's had chemo and recovering from it, do I want them to have NAD? Absolutely. So you can see you probably have to chat to your patients. So that might be the first thing you ask them. Does diabetics want it? Absolutely. Does someone on medication? Absolutely. There's no medication that is contraindicated for. I'm trying to think of most of your clientele. So diabetes, epilepsy, on medication like antidepressants, on medication for anything, for blood pressure, absolutely. Do I use it for people with blood pressure? Absolutely. Elevated cholesterol? Yes, they can. So you've got to think of the common reasons that you might sort of think, oh, is this safe?
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Look, I was going to cover our multi-B injections, so we could cover that quickly, and then we'll get on to my other favourite one.
Okay, multi-B injections, I believe you're bringing into your clinics, which is I love. So multi-B, quickly on a B vitamin lecture, there's 8 B group vitamins in the world, or currently they are named that way. And the common one, well, my favourite is B12. But as a general rule of thumb, when we use Bs, we don't use them unaccompanied. So often I see clients who are very low on B12 and they might go on a course of B12 to rectify that. That doesn't mean they stay on B12 because they need friends. And they have friends because they all get interconnected. The Krebs cycle links onto the citric acid cycle, links on the tryptophan cycle. So therefore, the multi-B injection is about, everyone knows the value of a blocker. It brings back your balance. Well, one of the Bs in a multi-B injection is B3, nicotinamide, okay? But what we've done is given the NAD is an activated B3. So basically a multi-B has B3, it's got B1, B2, B5, B3 and B12. Okay, so let's go through them. Let's stay at the highest one, that's the B12, because that's the best. Okay, so B12 is so fundamental for nerve and brain regeneration or just health. It's important for weight management. It's important for how you detox and how you methylate. So methylation is a fancy word, how we talk about liver detoxing. So B12 is the bomb. Get someone's skin detoxing better and faster. The next one we use is B6. I think B6 is probably the most underrated B group vitamin. It's called pyridoxine. It's about mental health. How many of us through COVID have had stressful things? So B6 is an adaptogen. It helps us make more serotonin, more melatonin for better sleep. So B6 is really important. Coming down, the next one's B3. Let's talk not about B3, you know it's important. B2 is the next one. Who doesn't want to lose weight? You know, B2 is all about weight. Carbohydrate metabolism. You know, I get so many clients who come in and they just have this lower, sluggish metabolism. You want to get them on B2, you want to ramp up their carbs. So if we're going to sneak in occasional champagne, we can get it through and use and not let it sit as love handles. Okay. Then the last one is B1 and that's thiamine. And thiamine is something that we're seeing more and more people are low in because it's poorly absorbed. And it's a very high amount of B1 you need all the time. And you'll often see skin rashes with it. So if you're seeing a client with a vague skin rash, eczema, you know, anything on the skin that you think, you know, just compromised skin function, you know they're probably having low B1 and therefore it's in the multi. So those who love alcohol lose B1. So if you think you're having a glass of wine at night, get on to B1. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, I'm just going to jump to the MIC. So I'm heading into the latter end of last year. I was kind of out all the time, eating lots of food, and I managed to put on 5 kilos in about 6 weeks. Yeah, it was really great. So in the new year, I thought, new year, new me. I'm going to go on a keto diet and be back at the gym. And I also coupled that with an MIC injection, and in doing that, in 5 weeks, I've lost the 5 kilos. So I just don't have cravings, found it really easy to stick to my diet. And I won't say it's as good as NAD, but I haven't had an NAD injection this year.
Oh, well done.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm loving it.
Okay.
So talk to us about that compound and how it came about.
Yeah, so MIC is a lipotropic, so it mobilises fat. So, but I would highly stress where you had the best success is you put yourself in a keto diet. So many of us know the value of ketosis. So I like to go into ketosis regularly. You could do it by time-restricted eating. You could do it by fasting protocols. But if you have someone in ketosis and then we drive the breaking down or mobilisation of fat, that's a good thing. So that's what we use MIC for. So that's methionine, inositol and choline. Now these are a version of a B family. They don't call them Bs, but I sort of call them a fatty B. They're sort of a fat unit on a B analogue. And they're really important for liver detoxes as well. So how am I going to mobilise fat? I'm going to get ketone bodies. And most of my ketone bodies are going to be out by your breath, by your sweat, or get your liver on a good side. So when you do an MIC injection, you could choose, in your clinics how you do it, we spoke about that briefly, to inject into love handles or parts of fat that you want a bit of movement. Of course, you're going to massage after it and put someone on a keto diet to get maximum results. But yeah, so that's how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. What would the contraindications be for a treatment?
No, there's none. Not for an MIC injection.
That's amazing.
Find me anyone with a bit of fat.
Yeah, and can people be allergic to it?
No. So, I mean, the fatty Bs also, these are, if someone had way too much, you might get some local skin irritation at the site of injection. That's probably the contraindication. So if someone that has many, and they get red and it's like any injection, the same spot. So you want to move your injection site while you give them and really target them with them. So we often talk about whether you want to do it it's best in a subcutaneous fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. And so that the local site might be the contraindication where it's a bit red and inflamed, but there's no one that you can't give an MIC to.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think I'm going to hand over to you guys to ask some questions because there's going to be some questions, right, for the amazing Mary-Lou.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mary, just a quick one on NAD. You're talking about, it's the thing between the mitochondria and the energy, ATP. Does adrenaline boost NAD in any case? Like, what does adrenaline do?
Yeah, your adrenals is your adrenals. So your adrenals are your little glands sitting above your kidneys and they make cortisol. So, and the boost of adrenaline comes from that cortisol direct stress response. No, it's very different. Most of us are adrenally exhausted at the moment, okay? So that's the fatigue you're having. NAD does not discriminate where you're losing your energy from because you're going to a cellular level. So if I want to give someone adaptogen, which is a cortisol and adrenal support, because I've got adrenal fatigue, and we do some wonderful herbs with that, you've got ashwagandha, rhodiola, very different, okay? So I'm just cupping their adrenals and going, okay, I know you've got a lot of stress, whatever's going in your life, COVID and everything else. NAD is non-discriminatory. It doesn't matter where you're losing your energy. It doesn't matter where your stress response is coming from. It's just going to slap that cell and go, okay, energy's the outcome. That's the holy grail. Did that sort of explain that?
Yeah.
So it's at a cellular level. So the NAD does oscillate to a reduced form, and that basically is the mechanism when you get stressed. So how then can stress affect it? From too much sunshine, too much alcohol and whatnot, is that NAD will try to protect itself, and it makes an NADH. So there's a lot of data now to say, do we need to inject NADH? I'm still an NAD believer because I want you to recycle it, okay? So the stress response will really deplete the NAD plus because it will quickly reduce it to an inactive form. And I don't want you to have inactive energy. I want activated energy.
And you mentioned about cancer and, whether or not you should have it if you've got cancer and you know you do. What about people that don't know they do?
Oh, right. So, okay. So for many of you who are in the skin and beauty energy, what is the 1B group vitamin which has done so much research in preventing SCCs? I don't know if I'm doing it on the bus here. Solar keratosis, any cellular precancerous changes is B3, it's nicotinamide. And we know that because the studies are there, 500 milligrams a day onward up to about 2 grams, prevents cellular change at a DNA level. So this is what the NAD does. It grabs the DNA and it actually pauses it. It says, okay, if a DNA is to change, then cancer will come. Okay, that's just a simple way of looking at how cellular changes and DNA comes. So you want a cell, particularly a skin cell, to replace and renew to a perfect form, a baby skin form. Okay, that's what B3 does. I was highlighting, and that's why we know nicotinamide it prevents reoccurring cellular changes, particularly cancer in the skin. Okay, so therefore you'd say, well, you told me you couldn't use in cancer. Pre-cancerous, yes, you can. If someone was to walk into your clinic and they've had breast cancer, ovarian cancer, something like that, I'm just saying I would sit there and go, this is not the molecule for you at this stage. Let's heal from the cancer, do your current treatment, and then bring it in. And it would be, I'm just doing it for my risk adversity. I'm not doing it because I'm worried about using it, because we've got many clients who do use it who are actually going through chemo. But I'm just saying, at your level, I wouldn't entertain it. Because I would hate someone to say, well, I didn't have cancer prior to the NAD, now I do. Now we know it's quite preposterous, but I don't want to be in that predicament. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Any more questions? Yes, Tina.
David Sinclair's also pretty obsessed with resveratrol.
I love it. Yeah. So resveratrol, who loves red wine? So we all know the benefit of the skin of a red grape, don't we? And that's where resveratrol predominantly is. And how that works is it upregulates a thing called a PARP. So if we look at the ageing of a cell, there's many biomarkers now that we are always researching with David Sinclair. And these ageing markers, some of them we want to keep as high and some as low. So we've even gone to telomere length on your DNA. Okay. But a PARP is an enzyme that every cell makes, and you want it high. Okay, you want these PARP enzymes to grab all those free radicals that you're getting every day, which is oxidative stress, too much bad food, too much alcohol, too much stress. You want these PARP upregulated. That's what resveratrol does, okay? So scientifically, resveratrol's been studied for years and it upregulates your PARP. So in theory, it should delay ageing. So he's about to publish that 1 gram a day of L-resveratrol had a significant upregulation of your PARP, okay? Same thing, NAD upregulates PARP, but it works a bit differently. It works on your SIRT1. Now, am I getting too clinical on this? A SIRT1 is a type of enzymes that your body makes that affects on your DNA. It makes your DNA repair and rejuvenate. That's what we're about. Repair and rejuvenate. That's how NAD works. So it works on your SIRT1 enzymes, not so much your PARP. Yeah.
How often would you, so somebody going into it new, as a new client, saying any one of those three that you're talking about, if they were to say, would you be recommending that it's a regular process, that you're saying this many injections per week?
Initially, absolutely. I think it's sometimes hard when you do one intramuscular injection of whether it be a multi-B or an MIC or an NAD, because there might be many things going on in their life that day. And the fact is, I know even if I had a facial, I'd feel bloody good. Okay? So even I'm walking up there a bit more invigorated and feeling great, did I put the distinction that the NAD had that wow factor? So I'd always say if anyone's doing any intramuscular, I would sign them up for 5 or 6 to start, whether it be weekly or monthly, whatever their budget allows, and then they'll start to see a difference, and then they'll see the value in it. Then they'll keep coming back. Yeah, did that explain that well?
And look, we've seen a difference even with our team and our clients. Like, some people will have one and say, oh, I didn't feel much. Other people will be like, God, I normally can't get out of bed in the morning, and I got up at 4 o'clock this morning and I went to yoga. So it's different results for different clients.
Yeah, totally. So as a molecule itself, it is, I'm going to say the word loosely, abused, but the biggest people who abuse it are your elite athletes, and they're not even telling you, okay? So we tend to have a bit of a clientele of middle-aged men in lycra who go out there and they're competing with their mates on Sunday and they're having the best time. Well, what do you think they're doing 3 days before? They're having an NAD infusion, okay? Because they know, and we've got so many testimonials, they'll shave 20 minutes off their best time. It is used into the sports arena, okay? You're just not hearing about it. But so, I don't know, how do we step into that? So there's many people, sports athletes is probably a big one we do it for, because it's about energy consumption and utilisation of carbohydrates, which gives them a better result at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think timing is whenever you feel comfortable as well. Like, you might think, yeah, I want to have one of these a week, and we definitely recommend a course. And I think some people feel the effects more than others.
Oh, yeah. So you'll get some people walking out with one injection just going, wow, I don't know, what was that? My brain has just kicked on, okay? Or others take 3 or 4. So I say it's best to say, look, don't base it on one injection, let them try a bit of it and then sit back. I mean, because it's not an IV. An IV, you do get that, sudden change. So I would say definitely give them an opportunity to try it a few times. And also, you don't know how down-regulated their NAD receptors are. You don't know their whole history of whether they're on many medications, particularly antidepressants, cholesterol-lowering therapies, statins lower it. you know, or they've got high blood pressure, so they might have many comorbidities that you really probably haven't even gone below the iceberg, that you go, or maybe you do know it all, I don't know, when you have a consult, but, you know, just say, look, commit to 4 or 5 and then make an independent decision. Trust me, they're going to like it. So most people then, what they'll go is, feel great, and then they'll go in about a month's time, I need another one.
So
Yeah.
you do have a lull? You come off that?
You don't so much have a lull. What you'll see is a change. Your health was great, and then your health will go back to usual. Okay, what do I mainly see if I know I have one? I use an indicator as my sleep's not as optimal as I like it, or just my brain. Yeah.
And cognition is a big thing for me as well.
Yeah.
You just feel like laser sharp.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Charlotte, did you have a question?
I was going to say that you were saying about you don't recognise it much in the fitness industry, but lately I've been served fitness ads on NAD, which is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as an oral NAD supplement?
I don't know what it is, but because I've had a few NADs myself,
Yeah.
I'm now starting to get served the fitness ads.
Yeah, good. So NAD is really like, you know, we love to confuse people. So the first thing is NAD plus, you must understand its raw, purest form is not in a capsule. So if someone's trying to sell you a supplement, what they're selling you is a precursor to NAD, and the 2 major oral precursors, and Fran may choose to stop them, is nicotinamide ribose or nicotinamide mononucleotide. They both convert in your body to NAD+, okay? Is one better than the other? Well, I think NMN is probably going to be superior, but who knows? I take NR. I use it for energy, and I use that as my booster. So therefore, I take it orally, and then it converts, and off I go. So where you're seeing is if it's NAD, you want to be doing it intranasally, sublingually, very poor. You heard Fran say you just need too much of it. So I would do intranasally or IM or IV for a true NAD.
Yeah. So when I was doing the NADs, it was everyone in health has kind of had a different experience. Like I normally don't sleep very well, or I can survive on a few hours sleep, but I was kind of sleeping like a baby and waking up full of energy, wanting to go to the gym, which was pretty cool. And then some people were sort of saying that they couldn't really sleep because they were really wired, but they enjoyed that because they were studying on the side, and like, pretty interesting that it works differently for what you sort of need.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because every cell, it doesn't know, you know, which cell, where your mitochondria is. I mean, we're just trying to flood every cell that has an NAD uptake receptor mechanism, and you'll find your most vulnerable part of your body will get the best out of it. So sleep, obviously, but that's what I use it for, and mental acuity. But you know, but for skin, it's really such a beautiful compound. I mean, to get a skin glowing, an even texture, complexion, for pigment skin, you know, anyone with rough skin that you're worried about any cellular keratosis or cellular change.
So Lou, you have access to it all. Every single vitamin therapy. What's your go-to? What does your week or month look like?
So I would do a multi-B and a NAD at least monthly, and I'd probably say I'm even on fortnightly. You know, so that's how I roster them into my life. I'd love to have them more regularly. I have some clients who we do subcut more regularly if they're really unwell, but fortunately, touch wood, it really works for me, and that's probably, I would say, probably coming after New Year. And look, I base it, if I've had a weekend and I've gone to a 50th, too many champagnes, not enough sleep, I'm having one Monday. You know, that's my answer. And maybe if we sort of talk to your clientele and go, you know, how was your week? What'd you do?
Do you take any other supplements?
I do take NAD boosters, depending on what I've done for the weekend and day. I do take a multi-mineral most days, and omegas, and collagen.
Yeah. Perfect.
Put
me on that list. Charlotte?
I just have another question, training based with the MICs, because I know that the girls are going to get a lot of questions about this. So the weight loss type of booster.
Yeah.
It's right that you can't just kind of have the booster and then you're going to lose weight. You really need to pair it with the...
You do. You've got, If someone's not in a fat burning mode, I mean, you know, it's a bit... You really need to get them into ketosis just for the best response. So they're moving...
So you would recommend ketosis?
Fat burning mode, So whether you do it by Fran's way of keto diet, I use fasting for my one. And I think, and the science now on fasting is really, really compelling for skin and for anti-aging. So, you know, my first word to most of my clients is find your fast, what works for you. And it's just not time-restricted eating. That's a 16 and 8. This is 1 or 2 days a week, zip it. Or if we have someone with hormone changes, we might do it monthly. But yeah, so if you say to them, okay, if you really want the best to move those love handles, you get into ketosis, same time, book in, have your MIC. So MIC is definitely a course, it's not a one-off. So you want someone to do it for 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah. That's what we've been doing. Charlotte's actually been doing it too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great
Good
results.
experience.
Yeah.
Could the upside outweigh the downside of a bespoke high-end? Or is the cost just prohibitive?
Is this for the MIC or the NAD? Oh, either or. No, I think for NAD, no, I'd give that. The MIC, I'd say once off, I probably wouldn't, I think maybe, well, I don't know how expensive it's going to be, but I think probably you wouldn't get the value. Because they're the education ketosis. A bespoke NAD, well, no, sometimes I think it's their budget, and I think if they want to give it a go. And I often explain to people, if nothing else, after it, you feel like you've had 2 cups of black coffee. And you go, how do you feel? And they go, I got uplifted, I had a bit of energy. Everyone gets that, okay? But whether you get the whole improvement of sleep and more using it as an adaptogen, that is stress control, that's the unknown, and that's the more regular thing.
Have you ever known anybody to have an NAD or a course of NADs and say it didn't feel any different?
Have I? They feel different, but they get the uncomfortableness after it, and they don't perceive the benefit after the injection. And that's why it's very much just chatting to your client about the value of what they're doing, and we're doing it at a cellular level. So, it's a bit crazy to say, am I going to drink a bottle of wine every night, go in the sunshine for 3 hours during the day and not wear sunscreen? All I'm going to have is a highly refined diet. Is one NAD injection. Well, of course, lifestyle's got to have a big part of it. So, and therefore, if they're not going to do anything else, well, then I'd probably be hitting them on the head going, come on. But they're the ones who need it. Okay, so they're the ones you go, no, you really, really need this. But are they going to see a representation of the cells? No, but their cells will definitely thank them in the future. Okay, so we're about cellular repair, pausing that DNA change and damage, and that's what the SIRT1 enzymes do, is they grab that DNA and make it replicate to a perfect being that it was, stopping cellular change, yeah. So premature aging.
Lydia?
How does it go with people who have low blood pressure and they get pretty weak and shaky and...
Yeah, so we do ask you, there is a procedure with it, and it's sticking around for another 15 minutes for a post-op to make sure they're okay. Do you do blood pressure screening pre any injections?
We don't currently, no.
Oh, you don't currently. Well, that's something you can bring into it. Do you have a question like that on your form?
But I think if we have any contraindications, or we're not sure,
you'll just stop
zero.
It. Yeah. Okay. I suppose in our clinic we do screen for that, and because most of ours are IV, so we'd be doing a blood pressure before it. For intramuscular with low blood pressure, they need it. Whether you've got high or low blood pressure, there's an advantage for them, okay, for vascular improvement, because even though it's not your red blood cells mitochondria, it is in the smooth muscle. So, but they would be the concerned person I may have wait longer after it to make sure. So we keep some keto bars, of course jelly beans can use. So if they're feeling giddy, we often introduce that, and we generally use a keto bar because it's, obviously not sugar, and it's just a seed nut bar, and we say eat that. Often you don't feel like eating, you just breathe through it. I think probably we have one, probably the significant is how the uptake happens. We had your beautiful nurse once who fainted, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. She was tiny.
Tiny, and she hadn't eaten, and she was standing up. So it was sort of the perfect storm what to learn from. So I think with the procedures, when you go through your protocol, you're going to have them sit down, sitting upright. Okay, you're not going to have them standing around, walking around the room. You're then going to be looking at them before you inject and making sure after they're in your care for 15 minutes, or at least in the facility, maybe in the waiting room. And then have that special keto or jelly bean or whatever you use for treats.
Yeah, and she wanted one after it as well. As soon as she came round from her fainting, she was like, I want another one.
Oh, yeah, so she had the best response. I mean, it whacked her, dropped her, we picked her up, and she got back. So I was like, okay. feel bad, and more people thought you're not coming back, but she did. Now, she was of Asian descent, so we don't know. After that, I went to Fran and I said, well, I just better just follow this up and see if there's not some sort of connection with where you're from in the world to see if this is affecting. So we do know the Asian descent, they do have a difference in some of the CYP1B ones and the enzymes, how you even mobilise drugs and whatnot. I couldn't find any data to suspect it, but we actually went in and we say, if you have some of Asian descent, we just start with a lower dose. The dose intramuscular you're using is a low dose. Okay, it's not an IV dose. So, yeah.
And she was 42 kilos. She was tiny.
And she hadn't eaten, and she was standing up. Yeah. So I think learn from what we have. There's many things that, and, maybe you might have a protocol that they only come in after a meal, and we'll work with you.
Elizabeth, did you have a question?
What's the dosage of NAD? And because men are different from women, absorption rates are different. What if you get a client and that's immunosuppressed, diabetic,
So the dosing is pretty well researched now. Unfortunately, a lot of it was done in mice, so we extrapolate to human dosing. But an intramuscular dose would start at 50 milligram and go up to 500 milligram. I know Fran we've opted in for a 200 milligram, so it's a bit of a universal dose. So you can do no harm, but you're right, are you giving them enough? So that's the first thing. So often in our clinic, if we have people who preferred intramuscular, and they're large men, they get one in each arm. So they get two, so it's 400 milligram. No.
So, what's a possibility of it being like TGA approved and going through the medical?
Yeah, it will be TGA approved.
Oh, it will be. And
at the moment,
doctors
it's not.
can prescribe it.
Doctors already prescribe.
Oh, they do.
That's how it's prescribed. Yeah, for your clinic. Yeah.
Yes, Chelsea?
If you've got a client who's got chronic fatigue, would you recommend double dosing on the same day with NAD and your multi-Bs, or would you do just one or the other?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. That was a great question. Can you give your multi-B and your NAD at the same time? Can you give your MIC at the same time? But yeah, absolutely can. Yeah. The NAD, I find, is painless. As an injection, you wouldn't even know. The multi-B,
But the multi-B is stick to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because it's mainly the B6 and the hydrochloride salt. And even though we put them in saline for the injection, it's the salt. And the people, the more it hurts, the more you know they're acidic and the more they need them. So you can sort of use that as your gauge. If they're going ouch, 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 you could gently have a conversation about changing to an alkaline diet and, bring more magnesium in.
Yeah, the thing I love with the ions as well is just not having to worry about taking oral medication. Taking the tablets every day and then thinking, are they effective? Are they working? I'm not feeling any result. Whereas I think with the IM, you can feel the difference in those compounds. You can feel the difference in your body.
Yeah. We've got some great literature on every vitamin on the comparison of oral absorption. The thing is, a lot of those data we don't use anymore because everyone's different and everyone's got a different journey, whether they've had a gut parasite or they've got chronic food intolerances. I mean, how many of us walk around there with food intolerances? We just avoid that food because it doesn't agree with you. But if you really isolate what it is, and therefore when you sort of take that into equation, you might have the absorption of, a B group vitamin in a capsule going from 37% to 5%. And that's what we're talking. None of the B group vitamins have got this phenomenal 100% absorption rate. It doesn't exist. Yeah. So therefore, already when you give it intramuscular, you bypass the gut. You've gone systemic straight into them, so they get a buzz. Yeah. Already.
Okay, guys. Any more questions? Or we're done?
Who wants one?
Yeah, who wants one? Jack's both hands up. I'm just checking. Charlotte, have we got product here? I've gone to get it.
Oh, she's gone to get it? There you go.
Or gone to the bathroom.
Edwina, you're on stage now. You don't want to be here.
I'm pretty sure we have some product here. If anybody wants one. Jack, did you want one? Oh, yeah. Go, Jessica.
I was just curious about an autoimmune disease. Is that, what you said about cancer, is that...
Oh yeah, no, I've got one of those. It's totally fine. So an autoimmune disease is obviously part of your T2 of your immune system gets very depleted. you need it more, you know. So if I'm going to encourage, and because that's my white blood cells and my whole, you know, not my innate immunity, this is my second phase. So I want a pretty robust immune system, and that's why I use them more. So obviously you might be thinking, does an autoimmune disease lead to cancer? Well, if someone doesn't treat it properly and well with diet and supplements and their medication, of course that would be a fear. But no, even more so, because that they have so much more internal stress that's out of their control. You know, it's nothing to do with what food they eat, it's nothing to do with sunshine. Their little cells are driving this stress engine. And all that stress starts in mitochondria. So we often do a simple blood test with autoimmune clients and we look at their liver markers, ALT and AST, and I know many of you are familiar with that, but if you see them out of range and not equal, you know they've got a lot of mitochondrial dysfunction. So that mitochondria needs more support, and autoimmunes cause that upon them. So the best thing you can do is give them some NAD to get their mitochondria reboost. So you might do nothing else, but they'll get energy, they'll sleep better, and then they'll start healing. Yeah.
When you talk about cell growth processes, what about something like endometriosis where you've got excess
Inflammation, yeah. So if the inflammation's from endometriosis or some sort of thyroid nodule or, you know, gut parasite, let's just, for this stage, inflammation will cause mitochondrial dysfunction. So we go back to a cellular level. So whatever is upsetting your energy-making capacity through your mitochondria, however you get there, remember it's non-discriminatory. So yes, endometriosis. But is it going to reverse endometriosis? No. You've still got to work on many other things to support that. You know, get a ketosis, get on an alkaline diet. But yeah. Yes, very good. I mean, we actually had a lady the other day. Look, I suppose I live in this space with a lot of autoimmunity, and she had Hashimoto's, and she's been doing NAD for about 6 months, and look, we have balanced her supplementation, but she's got now a nodule which has disappeared off her scan, and so even the radiologist said, what nodule? She said it was there 6 months ago. So she's invested a lot in her health, but this renewal and cellular, it just really is a great cellular adaptogen. So, and that's a true autoimmune, someone with Hashimoto's. Yeah.
Awesome. Charlotte, did we have any product here or not? Not tonight. Okay, that's good. It's probably a good...
I was just going to say, is pregnancy a contraindication?
Oh, yeah, good. I think most injectables, I should have brought that up. We have actually used it for pregnancy, okay? Would I think in your clinic it probably will be a contraindication, I'm assuming? Yeah. So... but we do use it for pregnant women who vomit a lot.
What about the multi-Bs?
Yeah, so we use the multi-B and the NAD for those. Yeah. When you're pregnant, we don't want to cause any extra stresses. So, and the thing is, that's why I said for the women who are pregnant, we use it at already quite stressed. They're vomiting a lot, they're not keeping food down. So we can do no more harm than they're already doing themselves. So that's why we just go stuff it, bring it in. Because one thing is, you know, B6 alone settles the tummy and reduces vomiting. So therefore we use a multi and an ad. But I think for the everyday beauty clinic, I would say, look, you know, because they might be happy and, yeah. But say as soon as the baby's out.
Not long now, is it? Yeah. Okay, so Mary-Lou's from the compounding lab, so if you guys want to look her up or check her out or tag her tonight, that would be great. Check her out. But yeah, if there's no more questions, I think we'll wrap up this session for tonight. So if you'd like to join me in thanking Mary-Lou. Awesome. I think we have some beautiful flowers.